Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hack, and in this video, you're checking out one of my favorite builds of all time. This is the 1-bar solo Magicka Templar God mode setup, now stronger than ever heading into the High Isle chapter. Tons of critical chance, even more critical damage and healing, plus a very simple setup. Only one skill bar you need to worry about, very few buffs that need to be maintained, but it's even easier to do damage and stay alive on this build than ever, making it the perfect setup for Overland Content, solo arenas, and even soloing group dungeons. This is it, the original solo Templar God mode build for the Elder Scrolls Online, back with a vengeance. Alright everybody, we are back on the Magicka Templar with an update to our 1-bar God mode build, now updated for the High Isle chapter. This is going to be a great setup if you're interested in a high power Templar setup that is extremely easy to play. Just a couple of damaging abilities, damage shield for protection, and that is about it. So let's go ahead and jump right into the buff stats on the build. Really not much that you need to buff, just a potion. And we are checking out the stat sheet here. 31k max Magicka, about 23k max health, and about 14k max stamina. Magicka recovery is solid at about 15, almost 1600. Our spell damage is near 5,000 there, about 4,800. Nearly 70% critical chance is really nice. And check out our resist as well without any buffs. 22 spell resistance and about 19k physical resistance. Which we want all 64 points into Magicka, being a Magicka-focused Templar. And then as far as the food here, Clockwork Citrus Fillet. This is just giving us a nice balance of max health, max Magicka, and Magicka recovery. Of course, you could use something like Witch Mother's Potent Brew. You could also go with pure Magicka and recovery, whatever you are comfortable with there. For the Mundus Stone, it's here somewhere. Thief Mundus, just kind of maxing out that critical chance. That's definitely what I would recommend. You could also go with the Lover Mundus if you want to focus a little bit more on penetration. And then lots and lots of nice passive bonuses. We'll talk about where these come from in a minute. If you've been following the High Isle chapter, you probably know this already. Now, in terms of the consumables, if you're using the particular mythic that we'll be talking about, then you can manage with just basic Magicka potions. Trash potions, basically. Max Magicka, just to buff your recovery a little bit, is going to be all that you need. If, however, you're not using that mythic, you will want a spell power potion. That's going to be especially important on the 1-bar build, because we don't really have room for a spell damage buff, something like Degeneration. So spell power potions is going to be the best way to get that very important buff. And then let's talk about the race here quickly. Now, I have not changed the race. I'm still going with High Elf for this particular Templar build. I think it's great for a couple reasons. The sustain is pretty good. With the spell recharge passive, we're getting Magicka or stamina back every 6 seconds, whichever one is the lowest. Plus, we're also getting a 5% damage reduction while channeling, and of course, our main ability, Puncturing Sweep, is a channel. So we pretty much always have 5% damage reduction, which is nice. That's going to stack with our other sources of like protection buffs. So it's very good. Of course, you get the 2,000 max Magicka and 258 spell damage, which are all great stats on this particular build. Of course, you could make this work equally well, I think, with Dark Elf. Dark Elf will give you some extra stamina, which is actually nice for sprinting, blocking, roll dodging. I also think Khajiit is going to be a nice option on this build since we are so focused on critical chance and critical damage. You'll be close to maxing out your crit damage percentage with a Khajiit on this particular setup. So that's something you might want to play around with, but might be less ideal for group content. All right, let's switch gears and jump into the sets next and see where things have changed. Starting with our first 5-piece set, we are keeping the Medusa set here on the 1-bar Templar. Now, a couple reasons why I like this. Obviously, you get a lot of critical chance. You can see the 2 through 5 bonuses are really nice for Medusa, but you also get passive minor force, so that's going to increase your critical damage by 10% at all times. Now, this is really useful because it means we don't have to run Barb Trap. We don't have to run Channeled Acceleration. We don't need to waste a bar slot, basically, for those 2 skills, and we're still going to get this important buff. Since we do have such high critical chance, this results in a lot of extra damage, which I think is really well worth it on the solo build. Do you need it? No, I'll talk about some other alternatives in a minute, but this is really good just to maximize the critical damage on this setup. So this is a heavy armor set, by the way, dungeon set from the base game, so it will take a little bit of farming. There's a very specific way I am running this, and it goes like this. 2 pieces on the weapon. So your lightning staff of Medusa being a 2-handed weapon, that's going to count for 2. Then we have a heavy chest. That's going to bring us to 3 pieces. Then we're going to have 2 pieces on the jewelry. A necklace and a ring. So that's 4 and 5. That's gives us the full 5-piece set of Medusa. In terms of the jewelry there, you will want spell damage on everything. I've got both of those with Bloodthirsty as the enchant. You might be wondering, what is that 3rd piece of jewelry? Well, it is going to be the Oaken Soul Mythic Ring. Currently checking this out on PTS. This is set to go live very soon. And it's basically the 1-bar Mythic. With this item equipped, you're unable to swap between your bars, your weapon sets basically. But you get all of these buffs for free. Major Berserk, Major Courage, Brutality, Sorcery, Prophecy, Savagery. Tons of great buffs here. Basically, the idea behind this Mythic, if you haven't seen it yet, is that it's trying to give you access to some buffs that you would normally have on a 2-bar build. For example, Major Resolve. You would probably have an armor buff on your back bar skill set somewhere. They've given you Major Resolve to account for that. Major Brutality and Major Sorcery. You'd probably have something like Degeneration or a class buff on your back bar. They've given you that with the ring as well. There are some really nice buffs that I don't know if these will make it through to live, but I hope some of them do at least, because these are very good for solo play. I'm talking about things like Major Berserk, Major Courage, which are more difficult to get otherwise. We don't really have skills that give us those, so they'd have to come from like an armor set or something like that. So it's very nice to have these on the Mythic Ring. It's very good for solo content, makes it extremely easy. And like I said, we can basically narrow things down to a 1-bar build, just a couple of damage skills, and it's super fun and easy. This does come with the infused trait, and I've just stuck on a spell damage enchant there. So that is our Mythic. That's going to leave us room for another 5-piece set, and I'm going with something else new this patch, and that is the Order's Wrath Crafted set. This is from the High Isle Zone. I did a whole separate video on this, so make sure you check that out if you haven't already. I give you the location for this set, and I break down all of the bonuses, but basically, this is sort of like an upgraded version of Mother Sorrow. It gives you lots of spell critical. It gives you extra weapon and spell damage, which is nice. But it also gives you a flat 8% bonus to your critical damage and critical healing. Now, notice that's not minor force or major force. It's actually not a named buff, so it's going to stack with everything. It's really good for solo builds. Like I said, it's similar to Mother Sorrow. It's a little bit less critical chance, but you get that 8% bonus critical damage and healing, which is really, really nice. It takes, I believe, only 3 traits to craft, so it should also be pretty easy. As soon as you get access to the High Isle chapter, you'll be able to craft it for yourself. So I'm basically using this just to fill in the rest of the body pieces. We've got the feet here, legs, hands, waist, and then shoulders. Those are all light armor, so 5 pieces of light on the body. We've got Divines as the trait, and then Max Magicka as the enchant. Of course, that just gives you 1 extra piece. This can be any piece that you want. Using the Krag monster set, this gives a nice 1-piece offensive penetration bonus. Of course, you could use something like Slimecraw for even more critical chance. That would give you probably over 70% crit on this build. I felt like the pen was a little bit lacking, so Krog is a nice option for that. Went with medium here just to maximize our Undaunted passives. I also left the max stamina enchant on there just to round out the stats, and of course Divines if you can get it. So again, the setup here is going to be Medusa for the weapon and jewelry, as well as 1 piece on the chest. We've got the Order's Wrath crafted set on the body, monster set or helmet of your choice, along with the Oaken Soul ring. Now, as far as alternative sets, if you don't have access to Medusa or you don't have the Order's Wrath crafted set yet, a really easy option would be Mother Sorrow. You can replace Mother Sorrow for any one of these sets. You can replace any of these sets with Mother Sorrow, and the build will be fairly much the same, just a little bit weaker in terms of your total crit damage output. That's what I would recommend. I'll also have another version on the website. Check out the link below for the written guide. Over there, we'll have the non-mythic version that has a monster set as well, so check that out if you're interested. But that's the basic setup, so let's go ahead and look at the 1-bar skills next. Super easy here, starting with Inner Light. This comes from the Mages Guild skill line, and really I just wanted something for passive damage. Now we do get these buffs from the Oaken Soul ring already, which is fine, but we're getting bonus Max Magicka, and you saw from the sets, they actually have 0 Magicka bonuses on both of the sets that I'm running. So it's nice to get a little bit extra magicka from somewhere. You get 5% from Inner Light plus a bonus 2% from the Mage's Guild passives. We'll look at those in a minute. But this is just some nice bonus damage. Really, you don't have to do anything to get that. So that's an option you should check out. Next up, Solar Barrage. This is a Templar class skill. It comes from the Dawn's Wrath skill line. Second ability here. It says very nice AoE magic damage around us. Plus, it gives us a couple of nice buffs. Empower, which increases our heavy attack damage. And we also get minor sorcery from this, so increasing our spell damage even further. We'll be easily over 5k with this buffed. So I like the fact that it's AoE. It's going to do AoE damage. You can proc it at any time to increase your spell damage as well through that minor sorcery passive. Next up is our damage shield. Dampen magic from the light armor skill line. You will want this for the extra defense. If you're taking too much damage, too much pressure, go ahead and pop your shield. Basically your main survival tool on this setup. Yes, you can use the Templar shield. That's another option you might want to check out, but I typically use Dampen Magic because it is a little bit more consistent. You don't have to hit enemies at all with this in order to increase the size. So something to keep in mind for sure. And then Puncturing Sweep, of course, our main damage ability on the Templar. This comes from Adric's Spear. First skill here, deals damage to multiple targets, heals us back for 41% of the damage done. So this is basically your main heal. I'll show you another healing skill we can throw on to the rotation as well. But basically the idea here is use your shield, protect your health bar, and then heal back up with Puncturing Sweep, all while doing damage at the same time. It's super effective. And then speaking of effective, Blazing Spear, that's the second to last ability from the same skill line. This does great range damage, okay? It's AoE damage plus damage over time. This is great for arenas, things like VMA, for example, where you have lots of ranged enemies who spawn in at different locations. You can just toss that Blazing Spear on top of their head. This can crit for well over 20k, by the way, when we're fully buffed, and this will kill enemies outright. Just one spear will kill them instantly, so it's pretty effective. Definitely recommend you practice using this. And then finally, the ultimate of choice here, Thunderous Rage. That's the Destruction Staff Ultimate Elemental Rage. It does change based on your staff. So we have the Lightning Staff. That's going to increase the duration by an extra 2 seconds, which is really nice. And this is basically just our burst ultimate. So whenever you need to knock down a big health enemy, big health target, go ahead and throw down your Elemental Rage, and you should be good to go there in terms of damage. So that's the main setup. That's kind of the easy mode setup. Like I said, just a couple of abilities, one damage shield, we're good to go. Now, if you would like more damage, what I recommend is just replace Inner Light, especially if you're using the Oaken Soul Ring. You really don't need the buffs that come from this. So you could do something like another Templar damage skill. You could either do Vampire's Bane for more single target damage over time, or you could do Purifying Light. Purifying Light is a really nice option because it copies the damage you do. This can crit, by the way, so this can hit over 30k. I've seen close to 35k crits with Power of the Light on this build. But when this ends, you also get a nice area of effect heal. So that's when I mentioned you can get some extra healing on this build. Actually, if you throw in Power of the Light, you can get that second heal on top of Puncturing Sweep, which is actually pretty nice for some more difficult bosses. Okay, so as far as the rotation on this build, it's really easy. I wouldn't even call it a rotation necessarily. Just apply those damaging effects, Solar Barrage, Blazing Spear, Purifying Light, and then use your Puncturing Sweep. Remember, Puncturing Sweep is going to heal you, as well as Purifying Light if you're using that. So when you take damage, you should quickly be back to full health without really doing anything. That's the great thing about the Templar. Of course, if you have your ultimate ready, you're going to want to drop those 3 damaging effects, followed by that Elemental Rage ultimate, and then do your Puncturing Sweep. So just one more added damage effect for huge burst damage. You can see during this fight, I really didn't even need to use my shield, but obviously you've got the damage shield there. If you need it, go ahead and pop your shield. That's going to be really useful if there's some mechanics involved where you can't be doing damage. If you have to be rolling or running away from AoE effects, from stuns, you have to be blocking. That's where the damage shield is really clutch, because obviously you won't be able to use Puncturing Sweep at that time, so it will save you. So make sure you use it whenever possible. All right, let's talk about the passive next. What do you need on the Magicka Templar to make this work? Well, Adric's Spear, all of these are extremely powerful. You will want to unlock these as soon as possible. Starting with Piercing Spear, this increases our critical damage by 10% as long as we have one of these abilities slotted, and we actually have 2. So 10% critical damage bonus. That stacks with everything else we have on this build. The Order's Wrath crafted set, that stacks with Medusa, that stacks with Major Force, champion points, everything. So basically we're very close to the cap on critical damage on the Templar due to this passive. It's really good. Make sure you get that one, as well as this one, Spear Wall. When activating an Adric Spear ability, you gain minor protection for 6 seconds. That's a 5% damage reduction. Remember, currently on the Oaken Soul Ring, you also get major protection. That's a 10% damage reduction, plus we have all our champion points. So this build, even though it's mainly light armor, is still extremely, extremely tanky. Burning Light, of course, we want this for the extra magic damage. And Balanced Warrior for the extra spell damage and resists. Dawn's Wrath, these are equally as good, you guys. Enduring Rays, you will want this to buff your durations to those Dawn's Wrath abilities. Prism, this gives you more ultimate back, which is always good. Illuminate, we talked about minor sorcery on the Magicka Templar. This is what gives you that 10% bonus spell damage, and it's anytime you cast these abilities. So basically, if you're using Solar Barrage consistently, you should always have that buff up. Then Restoring Spirit, 5% cost reduction across the board is really, really good. Last, let's talk about Restoring Light. Now, you can sub in some of these skills. Channeled Focus, for example, would be decent, I would say, for more of a beginner-friendly build. This gives you Magicka Recovery and Healing back. If you're doing that, then you will want these passives. Things like Mending, Sacred Ground, these are all going to increase your healing when you're standing in that rune. But if you're not actually using the rune, these basically do nothing. So you can actually save some points here on this particular setup by not picking those up. Just something to keep in mind. Destruction Staff, of course, we will want all of these. These are very helpful. As well as your light armor passives. Those are the main ones. Things like Evocation for the extra recovery, cost reduction. And then, of course, Prodigy for the critical chance and concentration for the offensive penetration. We did talk about briefly Mage's Guild. Remember, with Inner Light slotted, that's 5% max Magicka. But really, once you max those out with the Magicka Controller passive, it's up to 7, which is actually really nice. Plus, you get 2% bonus Magicka Recovery, which isn't bad. Undaunted, I am using all three types of armor here, light, medium, and heavy on this build. I did that for this reason. I get 6% bonus max stats, health, Magicka, and stamina, so that's definitely worth 2 points there. Assault and Support, not needed. Of course, you will want your High Elf racial skills, and then Alchemy Medicinal Use to make your potions last as long as possible. Champion points next. Let's go ahead and jump into things. Remember, I will have a written guide for this build. Link is in the description. Over there, you'll find a CP breakdown for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 CP. I will go over the slotted stars, though, at least what I recommend. So in the green tree, we've got Steed's Blessing. Usually I'll go up to Treasure Hunter and then Rationer and Liquid Efficiency. Over in the blue tree, the slotted stars are going to be Master at Arms, Biting Aura, Biting Finesse, and then Wrathful Strikes. Wrathful Strikes is actually getting buffed in the High Isle chapter. This is giving you increased weapon and spell damage to your offensive abilities, but this doesn't show up on your character sheet. It'll only show up on your ability tooltips. So keep that in mind. Another nice option you could go with, since our Magicka is so low, is Arcane Supremacy. This will help you get, above that 30k max Magicka mark, which is important. Other than that, a couple of key passives that you want, especially if you're doing solo arenas. You want Quick Recovery and then taking Preparation. You want to do this as early as possible for that 10% damage reduction. That's really, really huge. Last but not least, in the red tree, I've gone with kind of the standard setup here. Rejuvenation for the extra recovery, Fortified for the extra armor, Boundless Vitality for the extra health, and then Siphoning Spells for the extra max Magicka. That's 1500 Magicka on every kill. This is so essential, you guys, especially for doing arenas, whether it's VMA, whether it's Vatashran. You get that 1500 Magicka per kill. It's a big, big bonus to your sustain. So make sure you pick that guy up as soon as possible. All right, finally, if you're curious about the outfit style, I can show you really quick. This is actually just a costume. This is the old Scarlet Judge costume. I believe that's from Morrowind, the Morrowind chapter. All right, everybody, and with that said, that's going to wrap up this build update for the solo 1-bar Magicka Templar God Mode setup. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, found it informative. Of course, if you did, do me a favor and crush that like button. It absolutely helps out the channel. Make sure you're subscribed for many more high IL builds coming in the future, plus more ESO guides and updates headed your way soon. Big shout out, big thanks to all of our channel members here at HTM. You all are amazing. Thanks as always for your support. Much appreciated. If you are interested in supporting the channel, while also gaining some pretty nice perks like early access to videos or access to our members-only build library, you can click on that join button down below for more information, or click on the link for our members section over on our website, that's hacktheminotaur.com. If you have any questions about the build, if you want to see all the passives, all the champion points, alternate skills, or alternate gear sets, make sure to check out the written guide that's down in the pinned comment below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.